Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever felt awkward, out of place, hiding your true self, or afraid to share who you truly are, then do we have the Out of the Closet show for you. Today I'll be talking with Jeffrey Marsh, online sensation, Vine star, and author of a fabulous new book on being yourself called How to Be You.
You held it up. You held it up first.
Woohoo!
Hear each other. Hi.
Come on, bring it up there for a second.
Bring it right into the camera.
All right, how to be you. And that's just what we'll be talking about today.
Wait, I'll actually show you my very favorite part. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
One of my favorite illustrations.
All right.
The snow globe.
Ooh, the snow globe, which after I finish introducing, we will jump right into the snow globe.
Okay. You got more to say. I won't interrupt
Yes.
you. Go.
That's just what we'll be talking about today on top of snow globes, how to stop trying to be someone else and start living your own fabulous life. That plus we'll talk about the great peanut butter debate, bringing Vegas to the barnyard, WWWD, what would Wonder Woman do, what we can all learn from the Velveteen Rabbit, why you want to lip sync Julie Andrews when your head is upside down and you're wearing a hat on your chin, and why you're lucky if a bathroom fire doesn't reach your house.
You did your research. Darn.
So welcome to the show, Jeffrey. Are you ready to shine?
I am shining already. Let's take the shine to a new level.
Awesome. And let's take it to the audience then.
Okay.
All
Let's
right.
share shine with everybody.
So before we dive right into things, I guess I've got to ask, what's up with the snow globe picture?
It's my favorite because, the whole concept is about accepting who you are. Mm-hmm. We were all taught at a very young age, who you are is not acceptable. You got to change yourself in this, and this way to be loved, to become, that's generally called socialization. And by the time you're 7 or 8 years old, you've thoroughly judged your authentic self into the background. And your cardboard fake self is presented to the rest of the world. And to me, that snow globe transcends cuts right through that cardboard self and reaches the hearts of anybody who sees it.
I love it. So let's go from there. And I've got to ask, please forgive me, is your birthday really 7777?
It is indeed.
Now that is very auspicious.
Why should I forgive you? It's on the internet. I mean, what can I do? I think I look great for 39 years old.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's go back in time. Can you tell us first off, where'd you grow up?
York County, Pennsylvania. The country. The woods, actually.
Would we literally call that the sticks?
You could absolutely call that the sticks. I mean, I'll give you a little perspective. My mom is a Lutheran pastor. Mm-hmm. And so we were a church-going family, ever since I came on the scene and for long before that. And the church we attended when I was in middle school, starting high school, was also the Klan meeting house.
Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. This is Pennsylvania. Our family had nothing to do with that, of course. And my mom and dad are both very liberal people and accept me for who I am, which is a testament to them. But that neighborhood, that county, that area, pretty conservative stuff.
Wow. So when you talk about socialization and wearing that cardboard self, and I like to think of every baby that comes into the world, for the first few years, they just be. The baby is an is. It doesn't have to worry about pleasing somebody else. And once we have to start worrying about pleasing somebody else, love becomes conditional.
Yep.
Everything changes. So what were you like, let's say about age 6? What was going on and how was that affecting you?
Just before I gave it all up and decided to be my cardboard self, you mean?
Yeah, yes, pretty much.
Yeah, I was always a feminine, flamboyant kid, artistic, loved to play and sing and dance. And those things for a while were, how should we put it, bred out of me. Mm-hmm.
So, except for the barnyard?
Well, I had my secret place where I could truly be myself. And you know what? People online have told me about their secret places, it seems to be for somebody it's comic books, or for somebody else it's literature of a different kind, right? We all tend to have these worlds and places where we can let our real selves out. And part of the encouragement of the book is you could do that everywhere, and you should. And that's, in fact, the key to happiness. But to get back to the barnyard, it was our family farm. Mm-hmm. By the time I was about 6 or 7, it was in decline. And the government had paid my dad to stop farming. Ooh. There were subsidies. There was too much corn, too much soybeans. And so there were subsidies from the government to not do your farming. And we still raised animals. And Dad, can you hear background noise?
Yes, it sounded like an elephant going through.
This is New York City, and they are tearing apart the apartment next door. If it becomes bothersome, let me know.
I have a good background filter. It's fascinating because a couple hours ago they were right outside of here. We're suburbs, other side of the river, and they were like jackhammering into the sewer right next to us. And I'm going, I wonder what this interview is going to be like.
We can connect regardless of the background noise.
Absolutely. And this is a real show. It's so when people are listening, if we hear the elephant trumpeting along, it's all good.
It's a bit like me singing out in the barnyard.
Ooh.
It was something that I wished was only in the background. Mm-hmm. But there were some people. So to give you the background of the story, I would go into the barn. The farm was in decline. The farm was not operational anymore. And I would go into the barn and pretend there was an audience, pretend it was a theater. I would twirl around and sing and dance. And gosh, I would be myself, but I would also be Julie Andrews, Bette Midler, and lots of different characters, and express myself that way. And I knew that nobody from the family would discover me in there. At the same time, I had to have this ear out for footsteps outside, or the chance that somebody would come into that barn. And so really that, as per our conversation earlier, there was a real fragmentation of myself. You got to have the pure expression, the young, creative side. And then there's also this parenting side that is trying to make sure that nobody sees the real you.
This is fascinating. Now I'm putting on my psychology cap, which I have absolutely no training at all. And I'm going, what does this do to your wiring if you're allowed to be yourself, but you're in this hyper-aware state of what can happen if you're found out? And neither of those hats is the hat that you're going to choose to wear out in public.
Exactly. The hat that's out in public, aided by the hyper-aware part, mm-hmm. right? The side that's out in public is some sort of version of what the actual hyper-aware judge is telling me people want me to be. Now, did any of that make sense?
Yeah, I think it did. We share a lot in common. I was the kid who was beat up, put in the lockers, would run to school rather than take the bus because the entire bus, this was the time of Caddyshack. And I don't know how it took place, but there's the greasy, grimy gopher guts. My nickname became Gopher. I lived in Massachusetts, north of Boston. You would have the entire school bus chanting, "Go-fa, go-fa, go-fa." And then a group would get together and on the bus just start pummeling me, and the driver wouldn't be able to see it because they'd be like this. So I just...
Do you think the driver didn't see it or just didn't want to deal with it?
That's a good question. I didn't stick around on those occasions long enough to find out.
Not that it matters now. But.
I learned to move quickly. I couldn't figure out how to keep my mouth closed, but I had a very hard time being myself just for who I was, which was very different and unique, and I didn't know how to get away from myself or get away from that.
Well, can I tell you, we're the lucky ones. In that, it became very difficult for you and me to hide that authentic self. I feel true sympathy for people that can do it and do it well. and live their whole lives hidden.
Yeah, sympathy is the right word, because we're neither of us are here to judge. We do the opposite of that.
Yeah.
But we would like to say, I'm putting words in your mouth, it's no way to live. You
Yes.
have to be yourself. You have to be yourself.
Well, you could. This is my experience anyway. You live inside this story that if I am, to borrow a phrase from the LGBTQ community, if I come out as my true self, I'm going to risk losing people. I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be rejected, et cetera, et cetera. And there's all this risk, we think, when we're behind the curtain. Then we pull the curtain aside, and in little ways we start experimenting and coming out there. And eventually we just plop ourselves out in some sort of full way. And we find out that the risk was really minuscule.
Yeah. And the risk, yes, you will be judged. Yes, you will lose friends.
You notice I didn't get into that part.
It's all a yes, yes, yes. But if we put up this, what is this, the scale of justice, the woman with the
yes,
the other side far outweighs it.
Yeah.
And you can breathe. Your heart is not aching. It's not hurting at each moment.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty.
Woo!
that I wanted to give to everybody. So I decided to write the book, tell my version of it, and give people some advice about how to get there.
So we're going to jump into the book in just a minute. I'd love to learn a little bit more of your path for getting here, because it was a very perfect circuitous path. So first off, what were you? Were you 10, 11? When did you first tell your mom? It was, you said, your first of multiple times of saying, "Hey, I'm not quite what you're thinking I am."
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I was 11 years old, and we were on our way home from church, and Mom was driving, and it was a very complicated story that was going on inside. Like, I had a lot to say, but all I could get to come out, I had this, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but this sort of bottleneck literally in the throat, this constriction of trying to keep the emotion from coming out. And that also kept the words from coming out. So all I could manage was, "I think I like boys," in this very high-pitched squeaky tone. And Mom slammed on the brakes, and she turned the wheel hard, and the car went off the road and into a ditch. And she was upset. She started screaming, and she said, "You don't know anything about that. You're only 11 years old. You can't talk about things like that."
She knew.
And it was, well, yeah, I came to find out later. Yes, she knew. And she wanted to prevent it from happening.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the fascinating part. That was because she cared about me. I didn't know at the time. But she wanted to prevent it from happening because the only thing she had heard about queer people was that they're pariahs, they have no friends, they're diseased, they're outside society. And she didn't want that for her child. And so she was trying to prevent it from happening. But the message I got was that deep down there is truly something wrong with me as a human being.
It's a message that most people latch onto, and I'm guessing you. Well, I'd like to know if you did struggle with it a lot, and how was reading your book. I got the sense that even early on, in your own way, you started to, I don't know if I can say rise above it, because there were challenges, but you weren't accepting of it.
Well, not accepting of who I was deep down, you mean?
Well, no, you weren't accepting that you couldn't be who you are.
Oh, yes, that's more how I would phrase it. Yeah, it was never, in interviews, often people will ask me, "When did you know you were different?" And my answer is always, never. I never had that moment of knowing I was different. The only moment I had was, "Oh, this is me," and that seems to upset people somehow. And so it was a clear choice point. And I absolutely did take it personally for a while and thought it was something inherently wrong with me and that was my fault, right? I wasn't like super person who transcends everything when they're 4 years old. I have yet to meet that person, by the way. But it was clear to me that I was inherently this way and that it was natural for me, and other people couldn't handle it. That's what I got.
it's fascinating because, and I've experienced this to a certain extent too. Therefore, when somebody says you shouldn't behave that way, you shouldn't do this, should, they're asking you not to be you, and you're going, huh?
And I think, at least if people messaging me on my social channels is any indication, that's pretty universal. I've yet to encounter anyone online or offline who was not told there is something wrong with you in one form or another.
It's fascinating that it comes from, it often comes from those who love us most.
Our family.
Yes.
Yes, or our guardian or whoever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hate to ask about this, and then we're gonna dive into
Don't hate to ask about anything. I want this to go everywhere and be universal. So
All right, Jeffrey.
Open myself to everything. You ask me whatever you want.
I was a bicycle racer, which meant from the moment my first hair grew on my body, I shaved it off. And I still do, because it looks strange to me to have any hair down there as a former pro racer. It's my game. What happened when you first shaved your legs, though?
When I shaved for the first time, I was a teenager, and I came downstairs. Mm-hmm. And let me just say that teenagers tend to yearn for self-expression. Mm-hmm. I consider it the last gasps of your true self asserting itself, right? You have this battle of, no, society's wrong. Some teenagers do, right? No, society's wrong. Who I am is right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the way that expressed itself for me was shaving my legs and going out to clubs, which did exist in York, Pennsylvania, dressed beautifully. And I came downstairs the very first time that I decided to shave my legs, and my dad said, "What are those?" And I was a teenager. I said, "They're legs, Dad." And he said, "No, what did you do?" And we started arguing. I said, "I shave my legs. They're mine. I can do what I want." And it escalated into a violent situation. My parents, I mentioned that they accept me now and I love them dearly. They had a very difficult time and tried every possible method to get me not to be me. Name calling, violence, direct withholding of affection, you name it. They've since come around. That's the happy end of the story, but it was a very difficult time for me.
So going from there, I don't know what the time gap is. I apologize. I don't have your full history. How'd you end up studying Zen Buddhism?
The gap was quite large there, but you might say that it's something I've been studying all my life. Or you might even say, I don't know if this is true, it's something I've been studying for lifetimes.
I'll buy that.
Yeah, good. The first time that it became formal, I was in Philadelphia and I was looking, I went to a spiritual bookstore. I was always attracted to this place. It was on South Street. And they had dream catchers and they burned incense in the store and they had crystals and statues of the Buddha. And I was raised Lutheran and I had no concept of these other places in the world yet. And I was in college and I went into that store thinking, oh, this is like yoga class, right? Not understanding the depths that you could go. And across the room, I saw a book, There Is Nothing Wrong With You. And my heart opened up. Mm-hmm. I knew that it was for me. I knew it was true. There's a butterfly on the cover, which is something I love. And almost immediately, the mind starts to cloud over that. Mm-hmm. No, that's stupid. What is that? That's what you don't need something like that, right? All the stuff starts to creep in. But lucky for me, the you could say the body was already reacting. My little feet were moving over to that book, and my hands are reaching out to that title. And flip through the book, come to find out, written by Sherry Huber. She runs a monastery in California. I would eventually study with her. I would stay at the monastery for a while. That was about 15 years ago. And to show the book one more time, I want this cover.
I've got my cover of the book up as well.
I want this cover to have the same effect. I want it to reach hearts. Mine's too, but hearts from across the bookstore. We'll see.
I think you will. I feel you will. There.
Yeah, thank you.
So you studied Zen Buddhism. It's intriguing because
to this day.
Beautiful. I don't know her. But what I do and what little I know, and I haven't studied Zen Buddhism, studied the generalities of Buddhism, but not Zen Buddhism specifically. But out of all of the different types of Buddhism, in general, Zen tends to be the most linear, from my naivete.
Well, I must admit, I have a certain naivete too. I want to stay in the role of student, not of Zen teacher. You know, there are ways that you can go about becoming a teacher, and I've decided not to. I feel like the messages that I have picked up from Zen, exactly where I am as a social media star, I can do the most good to pass those messages on. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah. And there are certain, you know, if people want to learn more, I would point them toward people like Sherry, who are the teachers in the world. Mm-hmm. But I would agree with you that Zen is, at least the practice that I encountered, very linear, very step-by-step, very accessible in the Western world.
What would you say is, not that you can sum up your whole spiritual existence in
I'll try. In 2 minutes?
Yeah. What have you learned from it?
Well, I learned, first and foremost, most of all, there is nothing wrong with me. And if you want to get very technical, I learned that there isn't a me for there to be something wrong with. But without getting into all the, you know, spiritual layers and stuff that implies, the true thing that I would want to deliver to the world is that self-acceptance is, you know, and accepting and loving who you truly are is the gateway to a full, happy life. And I know that can sound Pollyanna-ish. It can sound like a greeting card, but it happens to also be true. And there are details to it. It's not just a t-shirt. It's a way of life, and it's possible. And I'm doing it, and I want to tell you about it.
I'm gonna pause from asking the next logical question from there.
Yes.
I'm gonna first ask, and then we're gonna jump right back into the acceptance of who you are. How did you go to becoming a Vine star?
Good question. A friend messaged me, texted me and said, "You got to download Vine. It's the coolest new thing, et cetera, et cetera." And I said, "Heck no. I have so much more to say than that." Because Vines are 6.5 seconds
Dizzying.
long. This is where, and you know, I suspect before too long, we'll get a 2-second video app. That's just my prediction. 6.5 seconds is not that long. And I said, I can't do that. I was making YouTubes at the time and you know, able to talk for minutes, an hour if I wanted to. And to get that all down to 6 seconds, I was like, no. But then I downloaded it and started experimenting with it. And the 6.5 seconds, there's that elephant again. The 6.5 seconds became the way to distill the message and just go right, boom, to the heart. Boom, right to the core of what people needed to know. And it evidently was necessary or needed or something people wanted.
There's something you talk about much later in the book, and it seems very appropriate here, which is something to the effect of, if something's scary, you have to go do it.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know how exactly I phrased it. It's not like, I wouldn't want people to think it's something you should do.
Fear is your best indication that you are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, That's it. Was there more to it, or that's the quote you want to talk about?
Well, that's specifically the part that I'd want to talk about. There's a lot more to it. You have it in the section of have your emotions.
Yeah, that's another great drawing. I'm going to answer the question, and you find that in your book and show the eyeball.
I can do that. So go for it.
I'm so glad I gave you an assignment. You said yes. That was so nice of you. The elephant's getting louder. You let me know if it's a problem. There's the eyeball. Another one of my favorite drawings. That my friend Danny decided to, not decided to, I begged him, and he said yes, he would do the drawings.
It's an all-seeing eye in purple, since that's the color of your book. I made College Confidence with ADD, a book for students and adults with attention deficit disorder and learning disorder. And I had to fight with the publisher, and I succeeded in getting all of the layout in purple as well. So and my website was butterflies, because the symbolism of the cocoon.
Yes. Okay, I was answering some question. I don't know what it was, but we'll get
fear
back to
and going to and starting Vine. In this case.
Yeah. The one point I wanted to make is it's not, if you're afraid of something, it's not that you should do it. It's not that you're a bad person if you don't. But it is simply that fear is your best indication that freedom is on the other side of that. When you're up against those edges, if you decide to press yourself out into the edges, you'll find that you grow as a person. And that freedom is your this could be a loaded word, but freedom's your reward on the other side of that.
I like it. So let's go from there. And then I said there was something I was going to bookmark and come back to, which is that you said that.
Oh, wait, I have to tell you something.
Please do.
It just dropped in, and I don't mean to be rude and interrupt you. Don't forget where you were going.
Okay. But
all the drawings are based on Zen circle paintings. Do you know that?
I've seen them, but I'm not
Thich
very
Nhat Hanh popularized them. It's it's getting into the moment and doing the circle. So you'll see that all the drawings in the book, the chapter headings are circle based.
So, and what I love about the eye, going back to the eye again, is this to me is the all-knowing, all-seeing eye, but with, dare I say, fabulous eyelashes.
Yes, and purple shadow as well.
Of course. Yeah. So going back, you were saying that we get to be ourselves. Do
you have a plane landing in your backyard?
We do. We do. We have an airport. Oh,
they're coming for you.
Keynote. I have on an NFL linebacker kind of. These are headphones that are used at football games. So what you hear isn't what the audience hears.
Oh, wow.
And so what you hear is the ambient noise in the studio. What the audience hears, because if I tap on this, you don't hear the tap.
Exactly.
And so don't worry if you hear the airplanes. Now, if you hear the jackhammers, that might be getting through. So you've said something to the effect of being ourselves, and we want to be ourselves and kind of dare to be ourselves. And I can hear people saying, it's kind of, for lack of a term, you talk about it in your book as kind of the Hitler thing, people afraid to be themselves, or what kind of monster is going to come out if somebody doesn't chain me to the ground.
Indeed. We were all taught that, well, here's the thing. In order to get to that place where you have sufficiently stuffed down your true self, you have to be told that your true self is wrong and bad somehow. And so people always constantly, when I also say in the book, the internet is obsessed with Hitler. I'm not quite sure why. But they always use him as the example that everybody's going to become a Hitler, and it's just not true. The essence of who you are, I don't know how to phrase this. The essence of who you are is goodness, kindness, light. I can't speak to Hitler. This is going to be so controversial. Are you ready? Ooh. I think that if things had happened differently for Hitler, he would have done different things.
I would completely agree.
And I would not blame who he is deep down as a person for what happened. I would blame the circumstances, what he was told, how he was taught. And I didn't know him. I can't speak to that. But
and what a loaded topic for the show.
did I just bring the energy all the way down?
No, but I'm gonna take it slightly tangential.
Sure.
Though I couldn't agree more, and understanding just a little bit of his history. If you look at anybody and whatever quote unquote atrocities, and there are some terrible things that people have done, the amount of pain that they had inside of them was equal to those terrible actions. And so if we come from an all-loving, all-knowing place of compassion, we know they are us, we are them, and their struggle is our struggle, and it's our brother going through the most terrible, awful, horrific experience that we can't even potentially imagine.
Yes. I mean, do you want to get topical about it? There have been lots of recent shootings.
I know where you're going, yeah.
From lots of different people. And to me, the answer is always, 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 always teaching people to love and accept themselves.
Yes.
Is the answer.
Yes.
Always. Always. You're not going to shoot people in a club for being gay when you love who you are. I know it sounds like too simple of an answer, and how it doesn't to you.
No. It was my immediate reaction when the shooting happened. Immediate reaction is that kind of action is such a terrible personal struggle and a shadow self that needed to come out.
Yes. Yes. And are there racist cops? Yeah. Are there cops who are simply afraid and were taught racist things, but they may not even know it, right? Probably. The answer to all of it is add more love to the mix, add more love to the world, add more self-acceptance to the training, and people will be able to broaden their perspective. This whole hate yourself into improving yourself method doesn't work.
That's the boot camp method.
That's the boot camp method. And it's the first method, by the way, that people throw up when a tragedy like that happens. It's like, you're terrible, you were wrong, the government's wrong, or police are wrong, or black people are wrong, or whatever it is, wrong, 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 wrong. And before we go there, let's say, gee, there's a lot of hate in this world. I don't even have to say it, right? MLK. The only way to meet hate is with love. Mm-hmm. And, the Buddha said a version of that too.
So you've got Mother Teresa who would not protest.
Mother Teresa, Gandhi, I mean, it's a good list.
Yeah, she wouldn't go against anything. I will not fight against war. Bring me to something pro-peace, and I'm there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of, oddly enough, nature. When you were talking about kind of what our true nature is, and that we're, if we brought love to the equation and self-love, how much differently we would be. And I was thinking of a few things. One is an image, when I was running years ago in Colorado, an image of a wild coyote sitting next to prairie dogs. And the prairie dogs are popping up and down from their holes. And the coyote had evidently eaten, and so wasn't trying to kill other prairie dogs. And the prairie dogs weren't concerned. They had an eye. They knew where a coyote was, but they weren't concerned. They're in this natural state when you're confident in your skin. You're not going around terrorizing everybody. You're living your existence. There's another thing having to do with the animal kingdom. We recently had a guest on talking about what do animals know, Carl Safina. And he was talking about what a true alpha is. Mm. And this is a society obsessed with alpha males, and I put that in quotes. Rip somebody apart to get to the top. Well, in nature, for instance, in the wolf kingdom, an alpha male is completely self-secure in who they are, fights less than any other wolf, is the kindest, most benevolent, will kill the meal, and then leave it for everybody else to have, and we'll go back to it last, because they're secure in who they are.
Yes. And could you imagine more people who are that secure? More people who have that much, the question I get constantly on social media, how are you so confident? And the answer is that security that you're talking about. You got to be willing to delve into what is going on here and then learn the process of accepting whatever you discover.
So a big question that would come up frequently, and you have it kind of later in your book, is what do you do? Haters, detractors, a lot of people want to hide to protect themselves, which, as we discussed earlier, isn't a very good long-term strategy.
Indeed. I think it's an okay short-term strategy, right? Not everybody has to have...
Oh, get you out of there. We don't need that confrontation by the bar. Get home.
Exactly.
Safely, one piece.
Not everybody has to stand there and take abuse in whatever form, right? I was a little shocked by the story that Hillary Clinton told. She said that a bully was after her, and she went home, and her mother stopped her from going in the house and said, that's not the way we deal with bullies. You need to turn around and go back and decide what you're going to do. And I don't know if we need to be forcing people to deal with the bullying, but your ultimate freedom, your ultimate strength is found in finding a way to ignore the bullies altogether. It's not necessarily confronting, answering back, getting into the fight with them, whatever it is. It's going to be about finding your focus that takes you, all of your passion and funnels and channels, everything you've got, and haters are not relevant anymore.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
So going from there, I want to learn more about how we get to know ourselves. But before there, what would Wonder Woman do?
What would she do? What would Linda Carter do? WWLCD.
Oh, she'd sing today.
Yes, she would. Yes, she would. Wonder Woman would, the reason that Wonder Woman's a hero of mine, I would, when I was growing up, I would pretend to be Wonder Woman in the woods and fight bad guys. And I really wished that I could go to school with bracelet. Wonder Woman has those bracelets that deflect the bullets.
Yeah.
And I wished I could go to school and deflect people's words with bullets. And eventually, through Wonder Woman's example, I learned how to do that. And again, it's that focus on what you love. It creates an energy force field, right? So that the hate bounces off. And I can talk about specific examples. But
Please do.
I once got a series of messages. So to catch your listeners up on, they may not be social media experts. Vine is owned by Twitter, and it's basically designed like Twitter, if you've ever used Twitter before, in that the videos, Twitter is words, a string of words, a string of characters that's limited in space. And Vine is a video that's limited in time. So the videos are 6.5 seconds long, and people can comment on the videos. And those comments are the same length as a tweet. They can only comment short sentences. I remember becoming popular online and having someone comment several times, several comments all the way down about how they were going to kill me, how they would find me in New York City, what it would feel like when they shot me, what kind of gun they were going to use, where in my body they would shoot me, how they would congratulate themselves after it happened, et cetera, et cetera. And that was a turning point for me because it was obviously deadly serious. And I realized in that moment, if I was going to proceed, I would have to be able to deal with that. And the way I figured out how to deal with it was by throwing myself into the videos themselves, into the connection, the expression, the love. And I realized really quickly that comments like that, death threats, which still happens to this day, that those are worth it. Doesn't that sound crazy? They're totally worth it because they're so minuscule compared to the love and the connection.
I've got to ask, I've only had this happen once that I'm aware of, where I had somebody comment on a newspaper article and say, I wish he had died, and gone on from there about me, because I've had 2 near-death experiences.
Yeah.
But I could feel the energy without even having read it. Something felt a warble in the force. What has been, you're doing a great job at it. Each time one of those things that comes in, you crank it up to 10. How are you doing it?
I live at 10. There's no cranking anymore. It's that, the dial was turned up and that's where it stays, right? And it's not like I'm always on. I mean, I sit in meditation. I have different energy levels, right? But there will never be a time where self-judgment, self-criticism is allowed.
Beautiful.
Those days are done. That is living at 10 for me.
For our audience, for people going on their journey, how do they start to find themselves?
Go live at a monastery for a while.
I'm laughing, but it is a good idea.
Well, yeah, that's how I did it. And if you want to start immediately, start today. Do something you love. To me, this is a practice like learning French, playing the violin, soccer. You have to practice it, and the more you practice it, the more you do it, the better you are at it. It's just that simple. There's no right or wrong. It's as scientific as that. So what you do, you find something you love. A lot of people tell me they're into coloring. Now there's this renaissance in coloring books, right?
Yeah.
For people of all ages. So you could color something, right? You get out the book, you color, and you practice having that be okay, no matter what happens. And if you really want extra credit, you practice loving it, enjoying yourself.
There's an expression I have: kind, gentle, easy, good. Do everything kind, gentle, easy, good. So
I like it.
So that you don't pick on yourself or anything. And so when you put something out into the universe, I want to be, well, I guess in your case, I want to be Wonder Woman, but bring it kind, gentle, easy, good, so that all of a sudden a Wonder Woman plane doesn't come crashing down on you. It sounds like a big theme we're talking about here, above and beyond everything else, is to be kind and compassionate with ourselves no matter what. So when we're trying to change, just how important is it to put the kindness and compassion first?
Is that rhetorical, or are you actually?
No, I'm asking.
It's the most important thing. And as a matter of fact, it won't happen otherwise. Try self-improvement through judgment and self-hatred. And then tell me how far you get. It's never going to happen. And learning the difference between those two processes, how to bring love to your life versus the judgment and self-hate that we were all taught, learning the difference between those two is also an excellent place to start.
You have go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, and again, Wonder Woman is a hero. Marsden, who the gentleman who created Wonder Woman, wanted to make a superhero that was different. So she's a woman, obviously, a difference from other superhero characters. But also, he wanted a character that would fight with kindness.
You cannot beat that.
You can't beat it. And, of course, you're going to get a voice in your head that say, well, fighting, you can't fight and be kind. You have to be aggressive. And But no, that's not how it goes. She lassos people and she asks them. She trusts in their adequacy. And she asks them questions and saves the planet, saves the world, saves the universe. Interjet.
Invisible though it may be.
Invisible though it may be, it's still there.
So let's go from there. Let's talk about emotions a little bit. And what is a daily joy list?
I think it's important. So many people write to me. The whole book is structured to be based on actual messages I've gotten over social. It was my mission, it's always been my mission, to make people that interact with me online feel important. That's part of the reason also why it's a workbook. We create the book together. So there's a part in the book, and I'll reveal. There's a part of the book where you design your own superhero cape, because that chapter is about learning to think of yourself as a hero. And I want to see your drawings, you personally. Not the royal you. I want to see your drawings.
You've got it.
Okay, good. And so every chapter is based on messages I've actually gotten from people over social. And one of the constant messages is about emotions and how people don't want to have them. Because it means this: I'm afraid I'll get, if I give over to my emotions, I can never come back. And all these concerns about feelings. And so the chapter is called Have Your Emotions because it's so essential to simply accept and have them. And people tend, when they think of emotions, they tend to think of sadness, anger, the quote, negative emotions. But people also try to regulate their positive emotions. And that part in the book and that list is designed so that people can have an experience of not regulating their joy, to physically list things out and not put a cap on it, not push it down, not try to look cool, right? Let the joy bubble up and let it be as big as it can possibly be. And then notice that you survived it.
My wife and I were hiking this morning. We try to get to nature every morning. In fact, this morning was like the coolest
I
morning.
love that all of your anecdotes start with, I was doing this exercise. I was doing this getting out of my house. I love that. Right.
We were out at our house this morning. Actually, it was really fun. We were on the edge of a lake, and I had put my feet in the lake, and for the first time ever, I had fish nibbling on my feet. Which the first time you feel that is the creepiest, weirdest. I shrieked. I can't believe I'm like, this is like out of the movies where something bumps you and you don't know what it is.
Yes.
And then you see the fish, and they came back as a whole family, and they're hanging out, and then they would come in, and they didn't really have teeth or anything, and they weren't like malicious. They just, in a sense, wanted to get to know me. It was really a cool experience. And we were realizing that we were two kids having fun. And we really are, we've heard this recently, we really are the only animal, quote unquote animal, which we are, that most of us stop playing as adults. Every other animal out there, almost till the day they die, will continue to play.
Yep. And I am so lucky, if I could give advice on this one.
Please.
Find a career that's playful for you. I get to make videos and have fun. And, I'm the luckiest person on earth because of it.
And the thing is, we all have, it's scary. It's scary. It's beyond scary. It's scary. It's not easy. It is, quote unquote, impractical, short term. I think we'd argue it's the most practical thing in the world in the long term. It's the
Indeed.
only way, in a sense, to live. If you have kids or a family to support, it's damn difficult. But there's something really special that happens if you can put yourself on that path.
If I was a kid, I would rather have mom and dad clipping coupons or taking us to dinner at other people's houses, sort of stretching things financially for a long time and be doing something that they love and be modeling that for me than to have, a mom or a dad with a steady job who it feels like their existence is soulless.
And where if the opportunity exists, you can see mom and dad more.
Yeah.
Which is huge. We live in a society today where it's just the way things are, but there are things we can do about it. But it takes such a shift where for many people after the child's born, they have to get to childcare so quickly so that the mom can get back to work.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And that means we're not raising our kids. Somebody else is for us.
Indeed. Yep.
So let's switch gears from there real briefly. This is a quote that it's very powerful. The problem is the more you think you know who you're supposed to be, the less chance you have to discover what might truly make you happy.
Who said that?
I have no idea, but that was a very wise individual.
Well, tell me, why was that meaningful for you?
It was very meaningful because we all try to put ourselves in a box, or we've been trained to put ourselves in a box. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. Or even in our adulthood, we all have these boxes, both future events that are going to make us happy, and believing we know ourselves based on a cultural, a societal, or familial norm that we've taken ownership of. And that's why what I'm often challenging people to do recently is to realize that's not mine.
Yes.
I don't own that. And so for myself, for my wife and myself, and we have lots of gifts and talents, as does anybody else, that we kind of bring to the table, we're also trying to stay a fluid amoebic blob of I don't know. What's the future going to be like? I don't know. We want to move someplace. Where are you going to move? I don't know. What's it going to look like? I happily, although it drives me nuts, but they're not contradictions. They can live simultaneously or congruently, have no idea. But the no idea-ness allows for infinite possibilities.
Yes. As soon as somebody, if I'm working with somebody in business or whatever, as soon as somebody says to me, I don't know, I trust that person. I stick with them. Because you don't have to have all the answers. And life is often better if you don't.
That makes sense.
Read the quote again. I need it again.
Okay.
What did I say?
The problem is, the more you think you know what you're supposed to be, the less chance you have to discover what might truly make you happy.
Ooh, yes. We spend all our time doing what we, it's going all the way back to the beginning of the podcast. It's that voice, whatever you want to call it, the judge or whatever, that's behind you telling you what other people want you to be. Mm-hmm. And it's actually all made up. You actually have never asked other people what they want. And who cares what their answer is? It's your life. But we never get to that spot because we think we know, because there is something telling us, which we can talk about in spiritual terms if you want, or just in practical terms. We think we know.
Go for the spiritual terms. Let's have fun with it.
Well, that to me would be the ego. The essence of the ego is this voice that is dictating your whole life and telling you who you are, what they think of you, what you should be doing. And you must find a different compass in your life. I forget what page the compass is on, but I have the compass drawing in the book too, for that very reason. You have to find a different way to live.
Couldn't agree more. Let's go from there, and before we start to wrap things up.
Aww.
I know. We may have to have you back, though.
Okay, good.
So, you say in the next chapter on feeling good, it is utter sadness if you were taught and brought up in a way that ties feeling bad to learning. My own interpretation, before you jump in, if we went in the same pattern as last time, is, and this is one of my big gripes lately, is that we all learn by trial and error. Somewhere very early on, however, we were taught error is bad.
Yep.
Therefore, how in the world are we going to learn anything?
Well, the way that we learn anything traditionally is we feel bad about ourselves. We make a quote. I hope everybody can hear the air quotes if they're just listening. We make a mistake. Mm-hmm. And the most crazy phrase in the English language, if I could wipe it from everyone's vocabulary, I would, is, I should have known better. How exactly? How should you have known better? Right? But that's the essence of it. Mm-hmm. Something happens, it doesn't go the way we plan, and the immediate response is, oh, that's my fault. Oh gosh, I'm terrible. Ooh, it's all me, right? And we need to break out of that. It's all me. In well, how do I want to phrase this? We need to break out of it's all me and start realizing it's all us.
And
something happens that you didn't expect, and you feel bad about it, and that just sucks everything back into it being about you. And the only thing that you need to do is, oh, that didn't go as planned. What do you think we should do? Right? Simple. Go ahead. I cut you off.
Oh, no, and it's not all about us, but it also can be about us in a celebratory sense. And this one is a real mind bender, flip everything on its head. It's sort of like Thomas Edison, which they say 10,000 attempts. Who knows if that's true? 10,000 attempts to create the light bulb.
Yeah.
And if he had gone, really, try number 4, try number 1, it really sucks. I'm a loser. I screwed up. I shouldn't have done that. The list goes on and on and on.
Yep.
We might be sitting here, metaphorically perhaps, in the dark.
Yes.
And so we need to celebrate the screw-ups, the failures. I wrote a newsletter this morning. There was a CEO who wrote a whole bunch of us who worked with his company this morning and apologized. His company was going out of business, and he apologized for how much he had screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And my heart so goes out to him. Because not only do I not believe there's such a thing as a screw-up, this is all, it's a giant learning, it's a giant school, everything on path. But I want him to get to that place, even just a smidge of self-love and self-compassion now when it's needed more than ever.
Did you write him and tell him that?
Yes and no. I wrote him. I paused to take this interview, and I will finish that email and send it.
Make the last bit about what you just told me, because that's so important. And yeah, there's no such thing as a mistake. There's no such thing as a screw up, really, philosophically. Mm-hmm. But my prayer for everyone listening, and for both of us, is that we keep screwing up in bigger and bigger ways. That we get more engaged, more active, and that as I became more and more, you
can say it.
Famous. So famous online, the mistakes in quotes are just more and more public, right? You put something out on social and it says the wrong time, or the address is wrong, right? And you have to retract and put it back, and just the more and more people know about stuff that has gone unintentionally. And I would just pray that everybody goes through that, just bigger and bigger, and your heart gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you just keep engaging at a bigger level.
I love it. You say in the book that we should all become the TV star for this very reason that you're talking about. For Jessica, for my wife and myself, we've been challenging ourselves, deliberately putting ourselves, and I want to know if you've been doing this, deliberately putting ourselves in uncomfortable, not negative situations, uncomfortable situations, because we know that's going to shake things up, which is going to help us see the world in a different way or grow in a path that we never would have even known of beforehand.
Indeed. I just had one recently. Actually, I'll give you the link for the show notes. I was on, we didn't even get to talk about it yet, but I'm gender queer. I use they, them pronouns. I'm active, part of the LGBTQ movement and community. And I went on conservative cable news to be interviewed about the book. Precisely because it was a mind-blowing experience for me. It was going to be a boundary pressing experience for me. And absolutely it was. And I absolutely feel like after that interview with a gentleman who really, he was so sickened by who I am, he could not look at me for much of the interview. Going through that process and staying on my message and my obsession of love taught me so much and helped me to grow as a person. And that is what life is about. That's what life is for, if I could get philosophical again.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Awesome.
And I feel like now, I mean, I could do any interview, right? After that experience, I could walk into a whole lot of stuff and still stay with that message. There is nothing wrong with you.
Were you able to, even if it was silently rather than out loud, send him or share with him some love?
Oh, yes. And I actually was able to do it out loud. So,
awesome.
Yeah. I found in that just spontaneously as the interview was starting, I found it necessary to acknowledge him, and people will see the video if they want from the show notes, but just acknowledge how brave he was to interview someone who made him uncomfortable. Me, in other words.
This brings it right back full circle to compassion.
Doesn't it? And in that act of compassion for him, I was able to include myself in compassion. We were two human beings trying to do something difficult for both of us.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and in that way, if I could preach again before we start wrapping up, you're having a conflict with someone, do your best, instead of two different people on opposite sides of the conflict, do your best to, I was about to use the word snap. It can be slower than that. You don't have to snap over, but find your way over to being on the same side and looking at the issue together. So for us in that interview, LGBTQ rights maybe was the issue. And I was trying my best to find a way to come over to the interviewer's side of the table so we could look at it together. That's how real change happens.
And that was also a huge growth experience for you then.
Indeed. Yeah. And there's another tip for people. I mean, if someone's coming at you aggressively, you don't have to meet them with aggression. That's the norm, right? Somebody hates me, I hate them. Somebody's angry with me, I get angry with them. Matching someone is the norm. You don't have to match. You don't have to match anybody.
What I've learned for myself, and this doesn't mean walk away necessarily, but don't throw the ball back.
Yeah.
If you don't throw the ball back, and that could be like you talk about in the section of bullies, of complete diffusion. Yeah, you're right.
Yes. Sherry talks about it like nailing Jell-O to the wall. Mm-hmm. Somebody is really trying to hammer, in that metaphor, hammer their point across, and you're not participating in the same way. So you, the Jell-O, just slide down the wall. They can't do it.
Awesome. So let's go into a few quick wrap-up questions for everybody out there. Get How to Be You. You're going to want this book. It is a beautiful read. And this, you can see I've kind of broken the binding. I've gone through it so much. You can see it all worn out there. This was an awesome read. And there is nobody, I would challenge, there is nobody out there who couldn't use, except for maybe you, who couldn't use a little more help at being you. Because we're always changing. You say it in the book. Well, who we are at 15, 30, 45, 60, it's always changing, always growing, always evolving, and we need to always be challenging ourselves.
Indeed. And if you look at my, for social media, you can get your demographics. And if you look at the pie charts and the bar graphs and all, people who follow me on social and this community of wonderful people that have grown up around what I put out is all different. Different races, different ages, different, some are LGBTQ, some are not. It's just all over the place. What unifies everybody is the message. But otherwise, it's an incredibly diverse group. So, yeah, this book is for everybody.
So, where can people
do
go?
That gesture so much. So people are going to be consuming this just auditorially. Some people, yes.
Yes. And so they
can't see you dancing in your chair.
Yes, I do. You can describe it for people. Woohoo!
Woo! Arms up, hands raised.
So I don't know if you can see in the background here. I have we just put some sunflowers in front of him or her. The woohoo.
Exactly. Woohoo figure.
The woohoo they figure. The woohoo Buddha.
Yay!
Over here, arms up. So even the elephant, the elephant down below, he's going woohoo,
celebrating
as well. So, all right, where can people go to find your book, to find out more, to find you everywhere?
Well, the book, and I was told this specifically. So the book is through Penguin Random House.
Mm-hmm.
And I was assigned, obviously, a publicist for the book. And she said, you are welcome to say the book is available wherever fine books are sold, which is true. So it's in your local bookstore. Mm-hmm. And it's available online. You can go to jeffreymarsh.com, JEFFREYMARSH.com. If you also Google Vine, beard, eyeshadow, there I am. That's another way to find me. And, you know, I'm on Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff. Just Google me, baby.
And if you don't, for some reason, remember to Google, you're driving down the road, go over to inspirenationshow.com.
Yes.
And we'll have all the links in the show notes there. So a few quick wrap-up questions, and then love it if you could do a very short meditation.
Absolutely.
First off, what advice would you give parents for their kids today?
I get messages all the time from parents, actually. And so much so that Penguin Random House asked me to put an appendix in the book about how to treat young people with respect. And that is my top tip. The way that you would treat an adult with respect, listen to them, value their opinions, ask them for help, say, I don't know, as per our conversation earlier. Those are the same things that I would do for somebody who's a teen, middle schooler, whatever. You know, they have, yeah, it's true, they haven't lived as long as we have, but that doesn't mean that what they have to say is less valuable, you know?
And they're coming in whole and complete, just as they are. They're a whole human, or a whole spirit in a human body.
Yes, yes. And another thing I would say to parents is, you know, that socialization we've been talking about, if you're trying to avoid your child having to go through that, sorry, seems to be something everybody goes through. The best that you can do as a parent is model your own spiritual growth in the midst of all of that, and be as kind as you can to that young person as they discover, as they find who they are.
So true, because they're looking at you.
Indeed, indeed.
So a question we like to ask all of our guests just before the end is what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
What personally brings me the greatest happiness? I'm going to sound so cheesy. Doing interviews like this with wonderful people like you. Am I allowed to say that? Because that truly is it. I mean, it's the message. It's what fuels me. And talk about a reason to get up in the morning. Mm-hmm. To talk about things like this with beautiful people who really get it. I mean, yeah, that's it.
To share it with the world. Woohoo!
We're going to change the world. Is that what you said?
Oh, to be able to share it with the world. And yes, we absolutely are. People are waking up. People are shifting. It is a radically different time. And I'm an extreme optimist about this.
Yes.
That we have reached actually a positive tipping point.
I think so too. I'm right there with you.
Awesome.
Let's keep it going.
So before we jump into a meditation, at that point, I won't be able to ask you anything.
Yes.
Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people?
No. I know. So I said no, and now here it comes anyway.
I paused.
Thank you. I know that you are perfectly adequate to finding your personal path to happiness and freedom. Now, it's probably not going to happen overnight. It's probably not going to be perfect. It's probably not going to be what you envisioned it would be. But you are absolutely, whether you are listening to this and you're 6, 16, or 66, you are perfectly adequate to finding that next step. And it's going to come from you. It must come from you. So get on it. That's my wisdom.
You've got your homework.
We're waiting for you.
No pressure. Now.
It's urgent, but not urgent. Okay.
Beautiful. So do you have a short meditation you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. And as we mentioned offline, there's also I once got in trouble for using the word empire, but I think you'll know what I mean. I have an empire of kindness. Mm-hmm. The book, I have a fashion line coming out that hopefully will help people feel good in their own bodies and will not be based on sizing as we've traditionally thought of it. And I have an app, the Jeffrey Marsh app. And inside the app, there are guided meditations. There are little, there's an audio component, but there's also videos to tell you how wonderful you are. There's written text, just reminders about who you are and what is most important to leading a happy life. So this is going to be modeled on that experience of creating the app. Are you ready?
I'll sit comfortably. And can people do this while driving down the roads or wait till they get home when they can close their eyes?
No, it's fine. Wherever you are. Just like just like everything I do, wherever you happen to be, you are most welcome.
Perfect.
If you are able to close your eyes, go ahead and do that now. If you happen to be driving or you happen to be walking down the street, just see if you can soften up a little bit. Let the muscles around your eyes relax. Let the eyebrows drop away from the center of your forehead. And let your shoulders loosen. And as best as you can, try to bring all of your focus and attention to your breathing. See if your breathing can fill all of your attention. What muscles are involved? How does it feel to breathe? And in this particular meditation, if there are background noises or distractions, it's perfectly okay for them to be there, just as it's perfectly okay for you to be having whatever experience you're having. And with that attention on the breath, there's no need to change the breath to lengthen or shorten. Just see if you can be hands off. Let the breath be as it is. And take a few nice, kind breaths, all on your own. Letting the breath be simple and focusing on the in and out as best as you can. Just as your breath is allowed to be whatever it is today, you are allowed to be whatever you are in this moment. Any feelings or thoughts that may arise, there's no need to call them positive, negative, or to even name what they are. Just see if you can take a few last breaths in total acceptance. Who you are and how you are is perfectly beautiful right now. And then begin very gently, very easily to direct the breath a little bit. Widen out the inhale. Take really deep breaths. You might even sigh as you exhale. Do 2 or 3 of those really big, really stretchy breaths. And whenever you are ready, open your eyes or start to come back to the car, the room, the place where you are, and then get on with your life. Thank you for being you.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. This has been so much fun.
You're so welcome. It's absolutely my pleasure.
I have to crank it up for the finish here. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get how to be you, and start living your life, and shine bright. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. You're a beautiful human. I really appreciate it.
As are you, Jeffrey. As are you. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!